In 1990, China made almost nothing the world wanted to buy. By 2010, it made almost everything. That shift, 2 decades, one country, quietly restructured the entire global economy. It changed where your clothes come from, what your phone costs, and why your government is nervous right now. And the strangest part? It was not an accident. It was a deal, and both sides thought they were winning. Here is what actually happened. After Mao, China had one problem bigger than all the others: 800 million poor people and no real way to employ them. The new leadership under Deng Xiaoping made a calculated bet: open the economy, let foreign companies in, give them cheap land, cheap labor, almost no environmental regulation, and a government that would not get in the way. In return, China got something it desperately needed: jobs, factories, and quietly, over time, knowledge. Western companies looked at this and saw a dream. Labor costs in China were roughly 1/20th of what they paid at home. If you could shift manufacturing there, your margins did not just improve, they transformed. A shoe that cost $12 to make in Ohio could cost $1.40 to make in Guangdong. So they moved, not slowly, fast. Nike, Apple, General Motors, Walmart, which became essentially a logistics arm of Chinese manufacturing. By the mid-2000s, Walmart alone was responsible for nearly 10% of the United States' entire trade deficit with China. One retailer, 10%. Now here is the mechanism most people miss. China did not just offer cheap hands, it built infrastructure at a speed that still sounds fictional. Between 2011 and 2013, China poured more concrete than the United States did in the entire 20th century. Ports, roads, power grids, rail. The cost of moving goods out of China kept falling, even as wages slowly rose. The system was self-reinforcing. And then came the currency piece. China kept the yuan artificially low against the dollar for years. This is the quiet engine behind everything. A weaker yuan means Chinese exports are cheaper for foreign buyers. It means American manufacturers are competing not just against lower wages, but against a currency that is being held down by policy. Against that, there is almost no way to win on price. The WTO let China in anyway in 2001. Within 3 years, the U.S. had lost over 500,000 manufacturing jobs. Economists called it the China shock. It was not a metaphor. Now the uncomfortable math. At its peak, China controlled around 28% of global manufacturing output. The entire European Union combined sits at roughly 15%. The United States around 16%. China does not dominate one category, it dominates categories: steel, electronics, pharmaceuticals, solar panels, rare earth minerals used in almost every piece of technology you own. And here is the irony that nobody talks about loudly enough. The companies that moved production to China did so to serve American consumers. American consumers loved the lower prices. The American government collected less in tariffs, and the profits, enormous profits, went back to American shareholders. Everyone benefited, except the communities where the factories used to be. What took 30 years to build has become something that cannot easily be undone. The supply chains are not just complex, they're deeply embedded. When COVID hit and China's factories paused, the world ran out of semiconductors, cars sat unfinished, hospitals ran short on basic supplies. That's when governments realized they had optimized for efficiency at the direct expense of resilience. And that trade-off was never really debated publicly. It was made quietly by companies chasing margin, ratified by consumers chasing price. Now, every major economy is trying to reverse it through tariffs, subsidies, friendshoring, reshoring. The US passed the CHIPS Act. The EU launched its own industrial strategy.
Everyone is trying to rebuild what they spent 2 decades dismantling. But here's the question nobody has cleanly answered yet. Can you rebuild a factory economy after you've spent a generation not having one? The machinery matters, but so do the skills, the supplier networks, the institutional knowledge that lives in the hands of workers who no longer exist in that industry. China did not just become the world's factory by being cheap, it became indispensable, and the world is still figuring out what to do about that.